everyone. This is Meredith, director at Talley Dunn Gallery, coming to you from my house, as you can see. And I am so happy to be talking today with one of my favorite artists, Natasha Bowdoin. And Natasha, looks like you're coming to us from somewhere exciting. Tell us where you're coming from.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Happy to virtually see you today. I am hailing from my studio today, so I will do a little lazy Susan action and spin you guys around. This is my studio of about, I think, 3 years now, in East End, Houston. So here I am. In my lair.
I can't believe it's been 3 years already that you've been in that space.
I think it's 3 years. It's either 2 or 3, but it looks like 3, so I'll just go with 3.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, I'm so excited to be talking to you today. We've got a few questions to ask you just to check in with you and see how you're doing. So I'll start off with the first question. I know your semester at Rice, again, for people who are watching, Natasha is a professor at Rice University in Houston. So I know your semester at Rice just recently finished up, and I'd love to know how adjusting to class from home for you and your students was.
Yeah, it's funny. I just had my final critiques this morning, so I am fresh off of finishing up the semester.
Congratulations! That's exciting.
Thank you. Yes, it is exciting. It's nice. It'll be nice to take off that hat for a small amount of time. But yeah, it has been incredibly challenging to figure out how to teach a studio class online, especially because I teach people how to paint. And so if I'm not physically in a space with them, that really changes things. And so I feel like part of the challenges were just the logistics. Like, for example, how do I teach a class also with my toddler running around? That's different. Teaching I think for the students too, learning from their bedrooms, just everyone having a portal into everyone else's intimate life is strange and surreal. But one of the things that I was surprised about was how it actually really created a sense of closeness right away. I kind of thought I was just going to sort of lose touch with my students because we weren't in the same room, but seeing them in their spaces and getting to know a little bit about their lives, because it's hard to edit that stuff out. Actually, I think brought us all way closer together, or at least created a sense of intimacy that I really didn't. I had sort of assumed the opposite was going to happen. So that was a nice, unexpected positive. But there were definitely things that I think it just changed what I taught and how I taught it. I mean, we ended up with my painting class. The students for their final projects in beginning painting ended up proposing an impossible painting. So they came up with this is what I would paint on the side of a building in Amsterdam, or this is what I would paint on a car, or this is what I would paint on a giant insect if I could. And so it was kind of fun to imagine these impossible projects. Can I say that they learned materially how to paint in that online section? Not as well as they would have in person, of course, but
sure.
Just tried to roll with the punches. I mean, I feel like that was the best we could do.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's surreal.
It's nice to hear the positives, because again, I feel like everyone's world has totally turned upside down. And just for me, I've been here since beginning of March, and I find myself, I never really thought of myself as connected to a space as much as I am with the gallery, just because I've worked there for 10 years. And, sometimes something that's so normal you could take for granted, but I really have found myself missing it. I miss driving to the gallery. I mean, I go maybe every week just pick up mail. But I mean, I miss it. I miss my desk. I miss all of those things. So I can't imagine being a professor where, I mean, so much of what you do is tied to being with your students in the same room. I mean, that's
Yeah.
so difficult. So at
Yeah.
least, you know, some silver linings are to be appreciated.
Yeah, there was definitely a little silver lining. It was hard and I think exhausting, but
I can
but
only imagine.
yeah, but I mean, you know, and I definitely practiced my amateur act as a stand-up comedian. I felt like I was just trying to find the humor in, you know, our like the weirdness of our reality right now,
Yeah.
which didn't always work. I tried.
But hey, you got to try, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think the other thing too that like came up out of it was which I actually think ultimately is a really good message to give students, which is like, you know, art is a really good way to process what's happening in the world. So you know, letting students like use it as a way to like work through what's happening to them right now. I think like art is actually a pretty good vehicle for that. So it was nice to try to communicate that and like give kids creative license to really figure out what that means for them, you know, if they want to use that as a way to process. So
Absolutely. Well, that's great. All right, next question. Now that the semester is over, yay. Well, I guess you can kind of answer this, but like maybe we can talk about what you're anticipating now that the semester is over. So now that the semester is over, what does a typical day for you look like?
yeah, well, I've been like, so I childcare is not happening. Well, childcare is happening with me and Josh. Now we have a 3-year-old, Billy, and so daycare is not up and running, and so we kind of swap days. That's kind of our schedule, and so one day I'll be on with Billy kind of full time, and then the other days I'll be in the studio. I just started coming back to the studio maybe like a couple weeks ago. My studio is just me and 2 other people, and we all have distinctly separate spaces. So, and Josh is that one of those 2 other people. So, so it's quiet, and so I come out here for those other days of the week when Josh is at home with Billy. And I have a little studio table at home too. It's kind of challenging to work there when there's like a little person wanting to do things with you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, although she's been like surprisingly chill with me occasionally doing some work there. But yeah, we just kind of stagger the days, and I try to come in on the days that I have free and stay as active in the studio as I can mentally handle.
Yeah. Well, again, I think that is a huge part of it too, just doing as much as you can in a day. I mean, I've really seen my efficiency shift, and I'm having to deal with working from home. And so again, I can only imagine, I think it's a blessing that you have a studio that you can go to,
For sure.
but also, you know, just doing what you can to get through the day and like processing all your emotions. I mean, it's just, it's a lot for all of us. So
yeah.
Well, and I'm excited to see kind of what happens through the summer in the studio. Hopefully now that classes are over, you can kind of have some good time to work through some stuff.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to be really good about like, you know, there's like this pressing question of what does the fall look like at Rice with teaching,
Right.
and it's totally important to think about that. But I think I'm also just trying to create a little bit of a buffer zone where I can just kind of get back to things in the studio, maybe unplug from that for a second before I dive back into trying to imagine like, what does the fall look like with my students? So there is like, I think I'm certainly looking forward to at least the next month to just be in the studio and just try to like escape here for a little bit.
Yeah. And kind of see what happens. I mean, you can really embrace that, hopefully.
Yeah.
That's great. And it's exciting because I remember when your studio previous to this, where there were a lot more studios in the same building, and you would have to kind of possibly interact with more people, which right now can seem a little bit nervous and scary. So
yeah, I'm really grateful to have a space that's like, it's low traffic. I mean, usually it's just one of us here at a time. So, which is nice anyway, just because like when you're here, there's no distraction. There's no like, you can hear cars on the road, but that's about it.
mhm.
And so I'm super grateful for that setup. It feels safe and comfortable and like an escape kind of from reality that's on the other side.
Yeah, and that's important right now more than ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, all right, let's see. What's the next question? What are a few things that that have brought you joy lately?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, at home, I mean, I think this is probably true for a lot of people that are able to have time to do this. I have been cooking and gardening a lot. I planted a victory plot like many other people have right now in our backyard. And so I find that very relaxing. And it's also like, it's a nice kind of it's got like a nice quality of labor to it too. I like built a bunch of beds and I just spend time tending plants when I'm not tending a little human.
Well, I have to ask you, what have you planted? What are you growing?
Yeah. Well, I have tomatoes, eggplants, peppers, tons of herbs, a lemon tree, a lime tree.
Wow.
I kind of went a little nuts with it. I mean, it was like the early pandemic stages where I think my psychology was at a low. So
Sure.
I just funneled all of it into the garden. And so, yeah, there's kind of a lot back there now. It's a little rough around the edges and I'm learning as I go, but it's nice. I mean, when I was a kid, my grandparents had a big victory plot in Maine where it was kind of like everyone had one. And I remember like loving to be out in that space. And so this is kind of a way to like create a mini version of that in my current life. So yeah, so that's been joyful. And I've been making a lot of art with my 3-year-old, including.
Oh, that's great. What is she drawn to in terms of making art? Is it painting? Is it more sculpture? Like
Yeah,
is awesome to me.
I should send you guys some pictures. Some of the stuff's
Yeah.
amazing. Well, I would say part of it is like directing her art parents to make it for her, which like she does enjoy taking like a director's role.
Uh-huh.
But she likes painting and she really likes Play-Doh. We've been making a lot of like Play-Doh food to give to her, like dinosaurs. So they have Play-Doh picnics and Legos, which like, I mean, I think I've always been a child in perpetuity, but like I love Legos and Play-Doh also. Like don't have to like ask me twice to play with those things. And so it's been really fun to just like make stuff with her at home. We made a big rainbow that we put in the window. And yeah, I mean, it's like just doing creative stuff with her. It feels really good right now to do that. So
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like something of the two things that you just said, the kind of joining factors that you're making things or you're touching things. It's a very tactile experience,
yeah.
whether you're in your garden, tending to your plants, or, making food for the dinosaurs out of Play-Doh with Billy. It's like very much, I find myself doing that too. Because again, the only time I can get outside is literally if I'm walking around. I just took Lady, my dog, on a walk, and it's so important. It's like grounding yourself basically. And so I totally relate. I wish I had someone to make little Play-Doh things with, but I don't know if I want to say.
I can send you some in the mail, Meredith. Okay, you can even request what kind of food group you would like. And
Yeah. Oh, I love it. That's so great. And like, here's one more question about Billy. Do you find, are you and Josh, like when she's directing you guys, do you find her like tending more to y'all's strength? Because you're both artists, you know, I wonder if she has you do one thing more than like he does, or maybe he does another thing more, like helping draw something or whatever.
yeah, that's a good question. I think that there probably is some of that going on. And I mean, even in the flip direction, which who knows if I'm just looking for this or if it's actually there, but I've noticed that like Billy, when she does make images herself, like she'll layer things, like she'll take a sticker
Oh,
and put it on a piece of paper and then put another sticker right on top of the first sticker and then color it over with marker. So I don't know, like, I don't know if I'm just looking for myself in her, but when I see her make things, I'm like, oh, I do that. Like, is that genetic, or is she like picking up on something that she's seeing me do? Or, so
uh-huh.
yeah, it's interesting. Like, and Josh is, like my style of drawing is very different from Josh's. Josh is like really meticulous and kind of in a different way. And so we definitely like, I'm sure she can see like where our wheelhouses differ in terms of how we make things. So it's interesting. Who knows what that will play out into, but yeah, I mean, it's she with Josh, like they like to like dream up creatures and then he draws the creature to her specifications, and my stuff is a little looser.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's more of a Lego person and I'm more of a Play-Doh person. Although I like Legos too. But
That makes sense to me. I get
yeah,
that.
yeah. So
That's awesome. I love hearing that. And I mean, she's a smart girl. You know, she's got to be picking up. I mean, I think it's an intuitive thing. So I'm not surprised to hear that. I think that's
yeah,
amazing. That
yeah,
makes me happy.
yeah, it's fun. It's
Yeah.
fun.
All right, let's move on to the next one. This is a broad question. Are you making new work? And if so, what are you focusing on right now?
Yeah.
Will you focus on?
I mean, I do have a lot of things in the works. So, and it's kind of all like they're all different kinds of projects. So I've been kind of jumping around in the studio, and I will say that I kind of, when everything like when reality kind of hit, I sort of took a little bit of a break or a breathing period to figure out how to get things going again. But
Mhm.
I've got some drawings that I'm finishing up for the Eamon Carter, which I think is going to be happening this coming December. And so I have one more drawing that I've been working on for that show, which is called In the Night Garden, that I'm really excited about. Um, and then I'm starting to work towards a piece that I'll be installing at Rice in a renovated biology building. That's going to be a large installation. So I've just started to kind of get that rolling. And then there's like little projects, like little drawings and things that I've had going that don't have any particular destination, but I'm kind of I occasionally turn to them when I'm frustrated somewhere else or something, or I need
Sure.
um, and and yeah, like I'm starting to try to figure out how to make things outdoors, which is really exciting.
Mhm.
So that's kind of like a longer process, but I'm excited, like thinking through that with people, and thinking about working on a catalog of past shows. So there's also other projects that aren't exclusively making based, but are related to the work that I have in the fire. Um, and am I forgetting anything? I don't know. There's kind of a lot that I have coming up, which is sort of, um, I don't know. I'm very grateful for that. It's kind of strange just given the time we're in, but I'm grateful to be
Mhm.
busy. I'm grateful to have things to work on. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot going on. I'm sitting in behind me are other things in process that don't have any particular destination. They're just things that I've been doing in the studio, and I like to work on a bunch of stuff at once anyway, just in case it has a chance or an opportunity to like cross pollinate, or one thing gets cut down and moves into another. So that's kind of typical of the way I work. So I'm trying to keep that going by mixing it up and keeping a lot of things moving along at the same time.
Yeah, which is awesome. Well, and yeah, you do have so many exciting things happening. And I feel like just with the gallery and you were kind of thinking through these new projects, and it's definitely been a process, but I feel like I almost feel like this situation that we're in is kind of allotting us a little bit more time, a little bit more breathing room to really think about it and properly, put through all the channels so that we can do these really exciting things at
Yeah.
Rice, whether it's making one of your big installations permanent, which is so exciting. I can't wait to see the finished product for that, because I feel like we've been talking about it for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
To see that come to fruition is going to be a huge step for you. And then the Eamon Carter, I mean, that is going to be amazing. Of course, it was supposed to open in July, but I think December is kind of working out as
It's
it should.
great.
Yes, because like who can imagine you going up to the Eamon Carter in July and installing something right now? I mean, it's just not a possibility. So I think everything is, there have been bumps in the road, but everything's kind of working out hopefully the way it should. So
Yeah, and I mean, like, given the way that I work in general, like time is always of value, and so if I have more time, that it's all the better for the work. I mean, so in a way, like it's great to have the time to like really think things through, like you said, and even be more ambitious with what maybe even more so than what my original plans were. So
yeah.
I think that's, in a way that's another silver lining, is that I just get more time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I totally agree. It's exciting. It's working.
Yeah.
Go.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well then let's move on. We have a couple of questions from people who actually submitted them to our email address. So I'm excited to hear you answer these as well, just from our audience. So the first one was, how has your connection to art changed while in quarantine, or as we like to call it, artist in residence, which I think is an interesting way to phrase it. And I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, a permanent artist in residence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a complicated question that I don't know. It's almost like when you're in the middle of it, like I don't know how, like I don't know what's happening.
Right.
I just can focus on the day to day or the present moment. I think that like in a kind of on a larger scale, I guess I've been thinking about how to use, or where I can use my art to kind of give back more to people. I like one thing that's kind of struck me in the beginning was like how quickly artists and institutions made what they were doing accessible to people that couldn't actually come in or physically be present. And even like small things like I follow this puppet theater on Instagram, Bob Baker's Marionettes out of LA. And I think it's every Saturday and Wednesday, they have a free online puppet show for people. So like, there's all this amazing content that has like filled the gaps for not being able to go out in person. And I guess like I've been thinking about like, I've been making art for friends more when I have,
That's nice.
and like, and just thinking about ways to make art that might like just different in different capacities that might bring people some joy or an escape. I mean, this is like really early days to even mention it, but I have been thinking about like how to actually with a couple friends, how to maybe get into doing some puppetry that we might broadcast to people. But so just stuff like that, like thinking about like, how can I make things? I also want to make a children's book. I mean, there's all like, I don't know where they're early, they're seeds for ideas, but just having an element of what I do as an artist go out into the world to more people in a free way that they can like enjoy, and maybe brings some lightness to people's heavy situations. So
Yeah, well, I think that's a really good kind of temporary solution because I feel like a lot of your artwork is so immersive and in
mhm.
an amazing way. I mean, you want to be around it. Like my screensaver on the back of my screen on my laptop is your Peace Garden plot when we had your show in 2016, just because it like, when I look at it, it makes me feel happy because it makes me feel like I'm there. And it's, it might seem like a challenge to bridge that gap between like, how do you still make things how do you translate the immersiveness when you're doing something virtual or making something for a friend, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I think that's a really great way to do it. And I think that's so nice making art for friends because it's, first of all, there's no pressure, not that there is when you're making art, but it's not for a museum. It's just something that you can make with your hands that makes you happy and will make somebody else happy. And I think that's an incredible solution. I hope more artists are doing that if they feel up to it. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. It's been it's just been a nice like release, and yeah. So that's kind of, I think that's how I've been processing what's my permanent artist in residence.
Well, and I think it's so interesting the way that question is phrased because, a lot of artists have other things going on. I mean, you're a very busy person. You're a professor, you have a child. I mean, I think some people think about artists and they're just sitting in their studios like, oh, they must be making artwork. They don't have anywhere else to go, but it's like, it's not that simple. So I think that it has a lot of layers.
Yeah, totally.
No pun intended. Okay, the last question we've got from our audience is your need to create work thriving, which we have kind of touched on, and or has this pandemic caused any creative fatigue?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely been moments of all manner of fatigue.
Yeah.
And I will say that like when kind of this all started to unfold, pretty much all my creative efforts got siphoned into teaching. Like, how do I teach? How do I get through this? How do I do a good job for my students? Like, how do I do a good job for myself? How do I stay sane trying to do this? And so like in the beginning, I mean, I've been a professor for a little while, and I think teaching art and making art are simpatico, obviously. And so they tend to really feed into each other. But I did feel like in this new format, I wasn't making anything while I was trying to finish up teaching. It was just like all my creative energy and brain power had to go into trying to reimagine that. Now that it's wrapping up, I feel differently, and I do feel like I'm starting to kind of find some momentum again, although I'm sure there will be starts and stops. I mean, I think like as we are all intimately familiar with now, like this is like a roller coaster that we're on. So
Absolutely.
So yeah, I don't, right now I feel pretty okay, and my studio definitely feels like a very welcome escape hatch when I need it. But I'm sure, but yeah, I'm sure there will be more fatigue coming. So I'm just gonna try to work when I don't have the really pressing sense of fatigue. And so when I do that, I'm not going to beat myself up about not being in the studio when that hits. It's just hard to know like how, how this is all going to continue to unfold. So
Right. And I think that is definitely, it's just in the back of all of our minds. It's hard to, you have all these exciting things coming up, but it's also hard to pinpoint or, work towards any of that when sometimes things, dates, whatever it is, things reopening again, they have kind of a question mark on them. So
yeah,
I'm definitely feeling that way as well. And I think it's affecting the way I'm such a planner, kind of like you are.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's been difficult in that way because it's like a roadblock in your brain, or that's how I feel at least. And sometimes I just have to like focus on one task that I'm going to do and not beat myself up about the fact that like I could be doing 3 other things at once if I was working at the gallery with all my systems in place.
yeah,
And you just kind of have to do the best that you can and take advantage of the time when you do feel good to work on stuff. I think
yeah,
that's
totally.
important too, while also taking care of yourself and your brain.
Yeah, totally. And I think, I mean, the other thing too, that it's funny, like at the very end of the semester, we did a couple online studio visits with other artists, and a question that kept coming up, which I think is like related to this question in a way, is like, okay, well, how do you like, is your artwork going to change in relationship to what's happening in the world? And I think that is like I'm sure every artist is thinking about that right now.
Mm-hmm.
Very hard question to like wrap one's mind around, especially if you make a certain kind of work that isn't on its face responsive to current events, or like, the kind of like whatever's happening in this moment in the world. And so that's on my mind too. And I don't have any answers. It's just kind of floating around up there. And who knows how that's going to manifest, but it is something that I think is probably on all our minds as creators right now. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
how is this particular world going to affect, change, or seep into what we do?
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to change a lot. And again, it's hard to know, like you just said, it's hard to know what that is right now, but
Yeah.
I can feel it for sure. I mean, just not even, supporting creatives, not really being a creative. For us and for me, it's more like, how can I do my best job from home, supporting artists that are also at home, trying to just like figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm just so grateful for the gallery and for you and for our artists, because it reinforces our sense of community. I feel like we're kind of a secondary family almost sometimes. And,
Totally.
that support system is super important, especially if you're isolated and alone. So.
Totally. And I mean, I've never felt like more like, weirdly, when no one can see each other, I feel like more connected to everyone.
Yeah, it's weird. It's very interesting, but it also like it makes me so happy to see your face. And like, we email all the time or we talk on the phone, but like just seeing your face right now, it makes me happy, because it's just like, oh my God, when was the last time I saw you? Earlier this year, I know, in your wonderful studio. But it's like, I don't know when we're going to be able to do that again. I know we will, but
Yeah,
at least we can have this for now.
totally. Yeah. Thank God for video chatting. Thank God that was already in place, because like without that, I mean, would we just be sending pigeons? I don't know. I mean, that would be cool too, but I don't
That
know.
would be cool. A little bit more involved, maybe.
A little more involved. Everyone can have a pigeon coop at their disposal.
Well, do you have any other things to add or anything you want to say to wrap up?
I mean, I'm grateful to have a conversation. It's nice to see you. And
You too. Well, and I think I'm grateful for all of the things that you have coming up. I think they're all super exciting. It's one of those things are things that I like to look forward to, even though some of them might be an unknown, because they're really exciting. They're so well deserved. And your career, as far as I've known you, has just really been taking off. And it's so exciting to watch and support and see and celebrate with you. So.
Meredith, I mean, I owe much of that to you guys. So I'm very grateful to have you on my team, to be a team.
Thank you. Well,
Yeah.
it's a good team and we're happy to be here for you. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you at home for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.